today. This is a video idea that I've had for a little bit now, and since I have nothing really else to talk about for the rest of this week, and since I don't want to do like a part 2 of anything right now, I'll probably do like an extra video next week on some extra stuff that I had. But as of right now, there is the big Xbox showcase that's going to be happening, and since I don't want to record like a video the day of and stuff, that's probably going to be a different day video to talk about it. But today I wanted to give a little bit of an interesting wish list idea that I've had for a bit, and I wrote down a bunch of stuff and recorded the audio. But since the showcase was last week and I had to do a different video on that, I wanted to put out the video this week as kind of a very interesting way of talking about different balance changes and things like that. So yeah, cut to my audio from about a weekish ago when I actually recorded this. Again, and thank you so much for at least checking out this video. It's probably not going to come out of much of anything, but I needed a video today, so
what I would like as a wish list for Season 3. Now, this might not get a ton of views, but fuck it, I wanted to make a video, and it's also a Saturday, so I don't really have to do too much. Plus, this is also just an easy video to put out, so yeah. Anyway, what am I hoping to accomplish with this video? Nothing much. I'm probably just going to post it to like the media sharing section or like a suggestions section as a way of just kind of looking at the current balance of the game and seeing what can work and what doesn't. These are mostly simple changes and very interesting, weird ideas to kind of push in a new, slightly different meta than the current one that we have. But of course, before we get into me absolutely just going nerd on you, please make sure to like, comment, favorite, and subscribe, and do all that stuff that YouTubers and other people say to do, because I'm very close to 1,000 subscribers, and I would really like your help, so yeah. Anyway, with that being said, let's get started with the buffs and nerfs. Now, oddly enough, I had come up with this idea back way before because I was looking at the APS and realized that it was a little bit overpowered in most of the game modes that I played, which was a lot of power shift, which, by the way, power shift is super fun. But what they did do is in this recent patch, they actually implemented what I kind of put down here. And yeah, I know, a lot of you might be saying, oh, well, you're just using that. And it's like, no, some people can attest to the fact that I actually said this before this kind of nerf. Now, the reason why I suggested mainly limiting the amount of things that it can destroy or taking enough damage to destroy it actually does make some sense, because in most of other games that have an APS type system, mainly Call of Duty, which is where I was basing it mostly off of, do have this sort of system where, you know, it has a limited health pool and can destroy up to X amount of objects. However, I do want to just take this opportunity to say I think they tweaked it a little too far. The majority of what it talked about was that it was supposed to do up to 40% of its damage, but it seems to be bugged in the sense that it only destroys up to 3 objects. This is, again, fine, but overall I think can definitely... There is a motorcycle outside. Sorry about that. But overall, I do think that they went a little bit too far. Personally, what I would have done is make it either 15 or 25% of its overall health. It still blocks a lot of projectiles, but at the same time, there is a lot of projectiles in this game, so yeah. Shutting down a specific one would be a little bit weird, but upping that number to at least 4 would maybe help, because that only really leaves the one hard-ish counter to that being the Heavy's grenade launcher, which has 6 shots, still being able to like kill someone. But overall, that would shut out several different objects, but you would destroy one thing by just using up the utility of another thing. And that doesn't account for all of the other thrown objects that are going to be in the game, as well as like, say, glitch barrels and the barrels in general just being able to do that. Also, this doesn't seem to counter the data reshaper, which I definitely think needs a buff, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Overall, while the 40% of the health thing is a good idea, the idea that I had here kind of does a weirdness to that, and I think would work a teeny tiny bit better. Now, again, keeping with the theme of destroying the health pool for itself, other than, say, lowering the health pool, some people suggested that you need to damage it before you actually get it to damage itself. This, in turn, makes some semblance of sense, because it means that you would have to, you know, get line of sight and kill it in order to know what was there. I don't know if that would be entirely good, like it monitors its health pool, and whenever it's below 100 or the full amount of its health, then it will start taking its own self-damage. I don't know how easy that would be to implement, but it's a neat idea to throw around nonetheless. I do, however, think that you should limit it down to, say, 25 to, again, 15% if you want to go super extreme. But 25 is way more than enough, as again, it shuts out. It does shut completely down a grenade launcher, but you end up sacrificing your grenade launcher damage to be able for other people to throw shit. So, I mean, you kind of have to make that decision, and I think it would make it much more easier. Plus, it would also just be easier for it to just destroy a set amount of objects, but, you know, potato, in any shape or form. What other interesting buffs or glitches or whatever do I happen to have here? That took about 5 minutes of my time. Jesus. The other ones aren't as extreme here. They're more just general interesting ideas, and that is the data reshaper. Just give it one more charge, please. That's really all that you'd have to do. It's perfect the way it is. It has a very decent range. The limiting of the scope of where it can dematerialize or reshape something is definitely an improvement, but I would 100% want to have it have one more charge. Just one. Because, yes, that is pretty good. It's, again, very niche because it only has the one charge. It would also help and make it better in other game modes outside of the one game mode of just power shift. Again, with terminal attack, having just the one charge of being able to shut out completely something means that you're trading off, again, one person's turret damage for another person's turret damage, and again, in my mind, giving the data reshaper one more charge doesn't really do anything, and doesn't really shake it up too much. It just makes it just a teeny bit more viral, or type of interesting, because being able to change at least one object into a prop and then maybe taking that prop and turning it into, say, another one would be better. Also, maybe if you don't want to go with the 2 charge thing, maybe just lowering the cooldown time to half of what it currently is. Either way, again, buffing the data reshaper could be seen better as a long-term solution. It's good the way it is, and you don't need to change it, but again, giving it one more charge would be very helpful. And like, you could even implement it to where you give it 2 charges, but when you use it, it has like a cooldown set animation to where you can't use it for the first like 3 seconds of the next charge. So it recharges faster, but it also like has a delay whenever you can use it once versus using it twice. So like you can't just like data reshape twice immediately and then completely lose it. Just kind of makes interesting sense here. So next up is specifically talking about the glitch grenade. Now, the glitch grenade did get a nerf from like 10 seconds to 5 seconds, which I think is fine, but I think that the glitch grenade versus the glitch trap, they should glitch different amounts of time. Or if you want to keep it within the same time, I think that it went a little bit too far. Personally, I think that 7 seconds, which is the kind of median between the 5 and the 10, would be sufficient. It gives it a little bit more wiggle room, but not so much as with the 10-second one. Again, being able to go through shields is also very nice, and again, this is very much so just nice. The one other thing that I think would actually help would be that it interrupts specific animations. I don't know if this actually does that, and I think it does, though I'm unsure. I'd have to kind of get someone else to test this specifically, but I don't think that it interrupts other animations. It interrupts you carrying something, most definitely, from what I can tell, but it doesn't interrupt you taking the cash out. What I think would be helpful is that it would be able to maybe not make them stop taking the cash out entirely, like the taser does, where they can't, like, interact with anything. I think them just, they're unable to... It stops them even for a second, like they hit, like they're holding E, but like when they get glitched, they stop interacting with the object, but they can go back to interacting with it. I think that would actually help, and that would help with stalling and would make the taser a little less viable since people are doing that. But again, that's neither here nor there. Next up, with the taser being mentioned, the above method of making the buff to the APS now makes a little bit more sense, in the sense that, well, you can put down the taser output with an APS. This is mainly coming back to the fact of where the taser is more of a projectile, and yes, certainly it is small, but, I mean, this thing can block most grenades and stuff, so the taser blast should be fine. I definitely think that being able to hard counter the taser like that would make the APS a little bit more viable and would make it a little bit more difficult for that sort of thing to happen. Again, this is more of just a general idea, and again, with the buff to the with the nerf to the APS of it being taken out, even having just a 40% decrease in the amount of health that that thing has could end up actually being very positive going forward. So yeah, again, making the taser be countered by the APS would be helpful, but again, unsure about that. I also think that someone also brought up the fact that they could use it similar to like a glitch grenade against turrets specifically. Now, I'm not sure how well this would work, but being able to tase turrets would actually again shadow nerf the glitch grenades, making them a little less viable. But again, unsure as to if that would really work in this context. I just think that that's fine. Next up is, I have heavies here in terms of TTK and bringing them down overall. And, you know, in some context, I don't know what I was talking about when I was mentioning this in terms of this actual idea, but I do think that the TTK could be tweaked a little bit more in terms of being less heavy focused, though unsure as to why. And the last one is, again, very simple, and that is give medium the smoke bombs. Like, in my mind, that just makes a lot of sense. Like, giving mediums the smoke bombs wouldn't really do much in terms of making them more viable because, again, the smoke bombs are available on the light classes, but I think that they would be helpful because, again, while light does have a lot of utility, the smoke bombs are kind of the meh of the group. They're more C or even a low B tier in my personal opinion. The main reason why I would even run them for, well, two reasons now, is one, because it counters fire, mainly the flamethrower as well as flame grenades, and literally if fire ever touches any of that smoke, yeah, it's going out. This can help, like, deal with fire on the cash out, deal with fire on this, and can also stop you from being on fire while you're in the cash out, which has actually happened to me once, where I threw smoke down and I went for the cash out, someone threw a pyro grenade into the fire, or into the smoke bomb, and I wasn't on fire while I was capping the thing. So yeah, smoke grenades are really good, but the best thing that I use them for and the best utility is to be able to obscure people's sight. Yeah, certainly you can still see people's health bars through them, and that sucks, but mostly I use them for when I need to grab someone's trophy and move it to a different location. Throwing down a smoke bomb is just another little insurance plan to be able to, you know, revive the person back to full health and move out in a very weird direction. Again, it is more concealment rather than cover, which I kind of like, but again, giving that to medium would make the smoke bomb see a little bit more play, in my personal opinion. Okay, so next up is new gadget ideas. Now, I'm basing most of these ideas off of certain things in, like, Team Fortress 2, kind of. Mainly I'm basing it off of the fact that the health beam and defib combo is very powerful and really is the only way to play medium right now. Now, if there were other ways to revive and heal, I don't think that that sort of thing would be actually necessary and would make the other team a little bit more interesting. Again, this just comes down to something that I wanted to think about, but here are the ideas of one for each of these classes. So first up, we have a thing called the heal shot. This gadget functions like a heal beam, but only heals around 25 per charge and has 2 charges. Used mainly by the light, it has a 25-second recharge and can be used to help yourself or heal it when you throw it at a team, and they can heal. And it also gives them the added benefit of a slight health regen increase. This can also be used to cut a revive time in half, but only when it is equipped. That is, only if you have it out in terms of, like, you know, how you have to pull out the defibs with a little bit of a charge up. Same thing with the health shot, where you have to have someone's trophy, pull out your actual thing and inject it into them. Again, unsure if that would actually work in terms of revival mechanics, but even just having the times where you have to sit there for half the time of reviving would be helpful and makes a lot of sense for that sort of class. Again, Blight already has a lot of other things for that, and their health is not necessarily that job, but if they wanted to do some more support stuff, that's a pretty solid one as well. Next up is the health bomb. This is kind of based off of the vanishing bomb idea from the other seasons, where it's a thrown projectile that can be similarly underhanded or overhanded thrown, similar again to the vanishing bomb, has a pretty wide radius and can heal up to 150 people all at once, and can heal up to 150 health to everyone within that radius. It can be taken out by an APS and has a 30-second cooldown. Again, only has the one charge similar to the Vanish Bomb. I think that this would be a good idea for Heavy because, again, since Heavy has taken a lot of damage there, 150 health can make or break specific items, and he still has to go through the animation of pulling it out and throwing it onto the ground. In some cases, that could be helpful, but again, in a lot of cases, it's mostly used for support utility. And again, most things to actually get out of using a heal beam in this being more of a side grade rather than a full-on upgrade would be best, in my opinion. Next up here, we have an Asabu's Speed Shot. This is a sponsored item that I think would be pretty interesting and does a very simple thing. It allows you to move faster for 25 seconds, but has a 45-second cooldown when used. This does not stack with things such as the Charge and Slam, and I don't know which class that this would be going for, but I think that specifically it would be going for, say, the Heavy, since the Heavy is the slowest of all three of the classes. But this is one that can be used on all classes if necessary. The speed boost, or the bump, or the speed boost, of which I'm going to continue to call it, would mainly just be like a can of Asbus or something like that, and again, wouldn't really do much other than maybe just make you faster and maybe give you a low gravity effect. But they already have a low gravity cube, so again, one of those things where it's more of a concept of maybe this could work, but at the end of the day, probably not. Next up, we have the thing that I call the bump. And this is basically just stealing Lucio's like bump thing from Overwatch, where you allows you to blast and push away enemies with a charge that works only it's in the direction of where you're facing, but again, works similarly, but again, it's kind of like the Charge and Slam, but not necessarily the same. It only works like in a forward direction and can work. Again, that's one of the more conceptual ones of like, I don't know how you would go about doing it, but it would just make good for like area denial as well as pushing people out of position and into other positions. Would be helpful. Next up here, we have 3 specializations, as well as some extra thoughts that I have going forward here. The 3 specializations that I have in mind here are, again, all mainly healing related, but they have mainly health benefits. That being the Healing Pulse, the Repulsion Shield, and the Armor Pack. Now, the Healing Pulse would be a thing that gives around 100 and increased regen for 30 seconds for a long cooldown. I think that personally, that one would be more given to, say, the healer, or maybe not medium, but I think that heavy would benefit the most from it. It gives out, again, 100 HP, just flat out, and then increases health regen for 30 seconds around it. If you wanted to, say, make it a little bit less buffy, or a little bit less one-time use, this health regen thing could be a spike that you put into the ground, so you create an area so you don't have to like move with it, or you can have it to where it pops up so a person can heal while around it, or in the end it could just be like a one-time pulse usage that just has a sort of slow cooldown. This can also work as an interesting gadget, but you'd have to kind of lower the HP cost of that or the HP regen of that. But again, it works similarly to the health beam, where it does an initial health boost but then allows you to heal over time. Again, this is not an outright replacement, as yes, 100 health could help, but it's not a full regen or full anything to there. Next up, we have a Repulsion Shield, this is mainly for the medium one and gives you a bubble that reflects fire away from you and from the outside, and has a charge up similar to the Invis and has a health pool similar to like a regular shield. I know that that's Heavy's thing, but I think that the Repulsion Shield could be helpful as more of a specialization rather than anything else. This Repulsion Shield just mainly redirects damage in different directions, rather than outright, absorbing that damage. It could also work in a similar way to, say, a charge up to something else. Like, you do more damage to me, but in the end, I can do that same amount of damage back to you. Or, connect to another person to share their health pool or something like that. Again, this is mainly just one of those very conceptual things that I'm not sure how it would work, but I think that it would work very interestingly. And finally, and the last one on this list here, is the armor pack. And this basically just gives armor to a nearby ally. This increases the health pool by about 50% and adds more of a temporary buff and has no stacking benefits. And you can only increase one person's HP by 50, and that's it. And can have a cooldown of up to 30 seconds and has 3 charges. Again, this is more of a specialization thing and can be used to heal, but only to the point of actually healing it. I don't know how this would actually work in-game, as, again, it does raise the health pool only by 50 points and is more of a temporary buff. I was thinking of an interesting way of where the armor would act differently to health, and how similarly in the terminal attack mode, where you have the more orange part of your health bar, that's the part that doesn't really... that's the part that I would recommend to be armor, that the armor itself would only take like maybe half the damage. Again, that's more of a conceptual thing, and I don't know how that would work in terms of balance-wise, as most of the weapons do seem to be balanced around the current health pools of all of them. So an extra 50 points here or there might throw off balance a little bit, but it would make it a little bit more interesting and make it a little bit more interesting for clutch replays. It would be very beneficial to, say, the light, as that would bring them up to 200 HP rather than the regular 150. But again, I don't know how that would actually work in terms of, helping out the team. And again, it being a light, the light might just give all 3 armor packs to himself, hence why I put the no stacking rule. That way, the health pool of them can't get up to medium status from them just repeatedly throwing out armor packs to themselves. It's mainly meant to be used as a support utility rather than anything else. It can heal the armor itself, from what I can think about, to up to the required 50 of it, but again, overall, there's not really much else that I think can be done with that. But with all that being said, I think that'll about do it. I've talked for 20 minutes about just a small list of things that I have for this game. Overall, I don't think any of these ideas will be implemented, but they're nice thought experiments nonetheless. And again, I'm unsure how most of these would be balanced. I do think, however, that the current state of the game is a little bit boring in the sense of that medium more or less has to be a healing role, and heavy has to be a specific other role. I would, however, like to see more healing options, though. I think that's more the interesting part that I'm getting at here. For the Kaijas and the specializations, I think that they need to introduce more ways that you can heal and support your teammates for at least the other 2 classes. I know that that's not their specialization, and that's not what they're supposed to be good at, but it is helpful nonetheless. Again, putting out things like the heal bomb and the heal shot could definitely be helpful, and in some cases can be very, very good whenever you end up thinking about it. Again, this is not the end-all be-all of they have to do this and this is what I want from the game, but definitely, I do think that you need to somehow make it easier to revive people, but you have to sacrifice your other utility for it, because the defibs are the only way to quickly revive someone, and the healing beam is the only way to quickly get health back. Putting out side grades to other classes, I think, is the best option going forward. But with all that being said, I think that'll about do it again for this episode of I Ran Into a Microphone for seemingly no reason, into a void of where people just don't seem to care. In any case, my name is GamePenguin21. Thank you all again so much for watching. If you want to support me in any other way, shape, or form, links down to everything in the description below. Please like, comment, favorite, and subscribe, and a peace.
Hey man, can I get a favor?